It all started with what should have been a regular business meeting. Simple, straightforward. But what happened next would spark outrage, leave millions speechless, and quietly bring one of the biggest corporate partnerships, worth over $2.3 billion, to a screeching halt. The moment unfolded in a sleek downtown office lobby, where a black executive, dressed sharp and carrying years of experience, stepped in to check in for his meeting. That's when things took a turn no one saw coming. The front desk receptionist, a woman quickly dubbed a Karen by those who witnessed it, didn't even look up at first. When she finally asked for his ID, what should have been a routine glance became something far uglier. She looked at the ID, then at him, then tossed it across the counter like it was trash. No explanation, no apology, just disrespect, loud and clear. The tension was instant. People in the lobby froze. Cameras caught it. And the man? He simply stood there, stunned, calm, but clearly shaken. What no one knew in that moment was who he actually was, a key decision-maker in a massive upcoming deal between two powerful companies, a deal that had taken years to shape. But what happened at that front desk would make him rethink everything. Behind that quiet reaction was a storm brewing, and the ripples from that one moment would reach boardrooms, headlines, and social media feeds across the country. As the clip began to circulate online, people demanded answers. Who was she? Why? Did she react that way? And most importantly, what happened to the partnership after that day? The companies involved went completely silent. No statements, no press, just gone. And that's where the story really begins. Because this wasn't just about one man and a receptionist. It was about power, perception, and what happens when respect is thrown out like trash. The man at the center of it all? His name is Marcus Reed, CEO, investor, a quiet powerhouse in the tech world. Not someone who chases the spotlight, but someone who helps shape it. For months, Marcus had been in talks with one of the biggest firms in the country, an exclusive deal set to merge innovative technology with global distribution. A $2.3 billion vision that promised to reshape how people connect, create, and communicate. But that single moment in the lobby changed everything. What's wild is that the receptionist, who we'll call Lauren for privacy, had no idea who Marcus was. No clue he was scheduled to meet with the board upstairs. No understanding that the man she had just dismissed so casually was the reason the entire executive team had flown in from 3 different states. And while Lauren may have thought it was just another Tuesday morning, the energy in the room after that ID toss told a very different story. Witnesses say Marcus didn't argue, didn't raise his voice. He just picked up his ID, nodded once, and walked out. That was it. But within hours, the scheduled meeting was called off. The deal was paused. Executives scrambled, unsure what had gone wrong. Emails went unanswered. Phones rang, and just like that, something that had taken years to build started to fall apart. What people still don't understand is why. Why didn't Marcus say anything publicly? Why didn't the company release a statement? And most of all, why did the deal, with so much money and potential on the table, just quietly die? Rumors started flying. Some said Marcus walked away as a personal decision. Others claimed the board tried to sweep the incident under the rug. But the truth? It's layered, and we're only just beginning to uncover the choices, silence, and power plays that followed one small, careless act. As the days passed, silence became louder than any press release. Inside corporate offices, people whispered behind glass doors. Executives who once posted proud updates about the partnership suddenly wiped their social media clean. The name Marcus Reed wasn't mentioned out loud, but everyone knew. It wasn't just about the ID toss anymore, it was about how leadership responded. Or rather, how they didn't. Some employees close to the deal said they tried to escalate the incident. A few even sent internal emails raising concerns about what had happened in the lobby, but those messages were either ignored or marked as handled. One person from the legal department, who asked not to be named, said HR conducted a brief internal review and declared it a misunderstanding. No apology, no accountability. Just quiet efforts to move on like nothing happened. Meanwhile, Marcus kept his distance. No tweets, no interviews. But behind the scenes, he started meeting with leaders from other companies, ones known for putting their values where their money is. Word started spreading in business circles that Marcus was considering taking his innovations elsewhere, maybe even launching his own platform, completely independent. That alone sent shockwaves through investors who had already tied millions to the now frozen deal. Then came another twist. A junior employee from the same company where the incident happened posted anonymously on a public forum. They claimed this wasn't the first time something like this had occurred in that building. They described a pattern, subtle, quiet, but unmistakable. Other clients of color feeling unwelcome, staff being overly watchful of certain visitors. The post went viral, sparking online debates and drawing even more attention to the company's lack of response. Still, no one from the executive board made a public comment, not even a vague statement. And that silence? It started looking less like professionalism and more like fear, or guilt, or both. Because what began as a single disrespectful moment was now unraveling an entire culture. And Marcus? He wasn't done yet. The pressure kept building. Every day the company stayed quiet. The online storm grew louder. News outlets started digging. Business blogs picked up the story, connecting dots between the paused partnership, the viral lobby footage, and Marcus Reed's sudden disappearance from the corporate spotlight. One headline read, 2.3B deal on ice after executive faces public. Disrespect. Is corporate America still listening? Another simply asked, where is Marcus Reed? Everyone was watching, but no one had answers. Internally, panic was setting in. Investors were restless. Shareholders demanded updates. Behind the scenes, there were emergency meetings, calls with PR teams, legal advisors, and image consultants. Some pushed for an apology, hoping it wasn't too late. Others warned that acknowledging anything could open the door to lawsuits or reputation damage. The board was divided, and while they argued, the clock kept ticking. Then something unexpected happened. A leaked email, allegedly from a senior executive, surfaced online. It hinted that the company had made efforts to contain the incident and prevent Marcus from overreacting emotionally. Those 5 words, overreacting emotionally, spread like wildfire. Screenshots flooded timelines. Public sentiment flipped from frustration to fury. What started as a careless moment was now clearly being mishandled at the highest level. Meanwhile, Marcus was no longer silent. Sources close to him revealed he'd started forming a coalition, bringing together Black entrepreneurs, industry leaders, and DEI advocates. Rumors swirled that they were planning something big, not a statement, not a lawsuit, something that would reshape the conversation, and maybe even the industry itself. A few insiders claimed that Marcus had already secured new funding, just as large, maybe larger, than the original deal, and just when it seemed like the company might finally break its silence. A private jet was spotted landing in a quiet city on the East Coast. Marcus had arrived, not for a meeting, not for reconciliation, but for something else entirely, something no one saw coming. When Marcus stepped off that jet, he wasn't alone. With him were 3 other executives, one a former rival, another a high-profile investor, and the third, a woman who had once served on the very same board that tried to contain the incident. Their presence wasn't just symbolic, it was a statement. Marcus wasn't coming back to talk, he was coming back to disrupt. Word spread fast that the group was planning a press event, something bold, unfiltered, and impossible to ignore. But before the media could catch up, a bombshell hit. Documents were leaked, internal memos, security footage logs, even training manuals. The source? Still unknown. But what they revealed sent shockwaves across the business world. The company involved had received prior complaints about similar incidents, multiple in fact. And instead of taking action, they quietly filed those reports away, treating them like paperwork instead of real problems. Suddenly, this wasn't just a story about one disrespectful receptionist or a deal gone cold. This was a systemic issue, one that had been buried under polished branding and corporate spin. Public trust began to crumble. Stocks dipped. Longtime partners distanced themselves. And through all of it, Marcus said nothing, just moved silently, deliberately. Then came the second twist. It turned out Marcus had been in negotiations for weeks, not just with tech investors, but with media groups, civil rights leaders, and even a former U.S. senator. Together, they were planning the launch of a new platform, not just a company, but a coalition. One focused on tech, equity, and access. One that would directly compete with the same company that had thrown his ID like it meant nothing. People started calling it the silent takeover, and with every leak, every headline, every shift in power behind the scenes, the original company fell deeper into crisis mode. Yet still, no public apology, no accountability, just a growing silence as the walls closed in. And now, the world was waiting for Marcus to speak, for someone to break. The morning of the press event, the world was watching. News vans lined the streets. Social media buzzed with countdowns. And when Marcus finally stepped up to the mic, dressed in his usual calm, professional style, there was no drama in his voice. Just truth. He didn't name names. He didn't rant. He simply told the story. What happened in the lobby. How no one followed up. How silence became louder than the disrespect itself. And then he paused. He looked into the cameras and said, "This wasn't about me." It never was. It's about what gets ignored when the people in power don't look like the people they're supposed to serve. The room was still. His words hit hard. Then, the big reveal. Marcus announced the official launch of Equitech, a new innovation platform powered by a $3.1 billion investment fund focused on diversity, access, and next-generation solutions. Not just a response, but a revolution. He listed over a dozen major backers, including brands that had quietly pulled out of deals with his former partners. The crowd erupted, cameras flashed. The narrative had flipped completely, but the biggest shock came right after. As the event wrapped up, an unexpected figure stepped on stage, Lauren, the same receptionist from the lobby. The room froze. No one knew she'd be there. And when she took the mic, she didn't deny what happened. Instead, she confessed. She admitted she had made assumptions, let bias cloud her judgment, and then revealed something no one expected. She'd been let go not long after the incident, blamed internally for the fallout. No support, no explanation. Just discarded. Like Marcus's ID. She ended by saying, "I was wrong, and I learned the hard way that silence doesn't protect anyone. It just delays the truth." That moment hit different. The story had come full circle, but not in the way anyone imagined. It wasn't just about one company collapsing. It was about a broken system being exposed, and the people brave enough to rebuild something better, from the wreckage. After the press event, the response was immediate. News outlets around the world ran with the story, not just about the fall of a $2.3 billion deal, but about how one moment sparked a movement. Marcus Reed's Equitech became more than a company. It became a symbol. A message that respect isn't optional, and silence has consequences. Investors lined up. Young entrepreneurs reached out in waves. People who had felt invisible in boardrooms and tech spaces suddenly felt seen. As for the original company, they finally issued a statement, a carefully worded apology that came too late. Trust was already broken. Several board members quietly stepped down. Clients walked away. What was once a thriving industry leader now struggled to stay relevant in a conversation it had tried to avoid. They had underestimated the power of one man choosing dignity over drama. And it cost them everything. Lauren's appearance at the press event became one of the most talked about moments of the year. Some criticized her. Others saw it as a rare and brave step toward accountability. But no matter how people felt, one thing was clear: she faced her actions in a way the company never did, and in doing so, helped close a chapter that began with something as simple as an ID tossed across a desk. In the end, this wasn't just a story about race, business, or power. It was about choices. The choice to stand up without raising your voice, the choice to walk away from money when it comes at the cost of respect, and the choice to build something better when others try to tear you down. Marcus never needed revenge. He just needed the truth to speak for itself. And in the end, it did, louder than anyone expected.